Welcome to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danika Foley-Long, and I'm here with our Superintendent of St. Mary Parish, Dr. Teresa Bagwell. There's a lot we must cover. The first thing I actually want to cover is the COVID response. We have now gone through at least 2 years of going through this pandemic, the school year, the students, the teachers, the school board employees. What is your response to tackling COVID in the school system?
Well, currently we still are following the CDC guidelines. We were to follow those all the way through to the end of the school year, which included masks. Now, with the summer program starting, we will be relaxing the mask mandate, and it will become a recommendation and not a requirement. So that's the major change. The other thing is we know that when school opens in the 21-22 school year, there will not be a requirement for us to take temperatures every day as students or visitors or employees enter the building.
Yeah.
We will have to reassess, though, honestly, because we want to look at statistics as we move into the beginning of the school year in order to determine whether or not masks should become a requirement or whether or not we leave them as a recommendation.
What did you learn? I mean, from going through it the first year, I will say you guys were very quick on your feet when it came to graduation in 2020. Mm-hmm. A lot of the students were just anxious and nervous. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do? We want to graduate. We want our families to be there to congratulate us. And you made it happen. Mm-hmm. The students were able to walk across the stage outside. Many of the schools, for the very first time, hosting an outside, outdoor graduation. But this year we had some rain, so those graduations were actually inside. They were indoors. Particularly, I remember Morgan City actually did theirs inside, West St. Mary. So what did you learn?
So I think one of the things that we learned is that we're very resilient, that we can adapt to whatever circumstance, and that our people are genuinely dedicated to our kids. Graduation was a priority for all of us. We didn't want our kids to have to sacrifice that major landmark in their grown-up world, and so as a priority, we were going to make it happen, and we're going to follow the guidelines to do that. And fortunately, being able to have it outside, we could easily spread the social distancing, and we could make it work for our kids. So, but we also learned a lot of good things about hygiene and the role that hygiene plays in keeping all kinds of viruses away. So I know our administrators made a lot of changes with the kids coming into school and leaving school with social distancing and just sanitation activities. And a lot of those things are going to stay for the next year because we learned that they have very positive results.
Now, graduation, definitely a landmark in their lives. However, there's also prom, and I understand the school board could not get behind a school-sponsored prom. However, some of the parents actually took it upon themselves to host a prom. I'll take again as an example, Morgan City hosting a prom, or not Morgan City itself, but the parents of students hosted a prom at Morgan City Auditorium. And that big space is pretty big. And I kind of stuck my head in a little bit to see, just how much room and where were the kids placed and standing. And it was a lot of room. Because that was something the parents decided to do, it seemed to go off without a hitch. Do you think that's something that may become a reality in the future and maybe become school board sponsored?
Oh, absolutely. I think that as we move through the pandemic, and especially with the vaccine effort for students that are ages 12 and up, as all of that proceeds, I think we'll definitely be able to return to a school-sponsored prom.
Speaking
and
of
homecoming.
Okay, right, homecoming, that's definitely another big to-do. Speaking of vaccinations, will that be a part of their immunization records from here on out?
It likely will be because if those of you who've been vaccinated, you know that you get that vaccine card. Now, to say it's going to be required by the school district, no. The school district will not require. We will just ask them to volunteer to be vaccinated because we do see the beneficial nature of being vaccinated to the student and to the people they're around.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the vaccinations, the school actually held a couple of days where you were able to get all the teachers, and I understand, you had a lot, but then you also had some that were a little more apprehensive. Have you turned over more numbers?
I don't know the exact numbers right now. We actually launched a survey on Monday. It closed on Thursday this week. to get some updated numbers, because while I know that we had about 30% of our employees participate in the school district sponsored program, some people chose to get those from private entities. So we want to get some updated numbers on that.
Yes, so we're moving into the summer, which is pretty exciting. You know, the last time you were here, we talked about the summer program, and that seems to have really hit it off. I mean, you guys are, like, you have waiting lists, but we'll talk about that and other things when we get back. So come on back right here on The Voice of the Coast with yours truly. We have Superintendent Dr. Teresa Bagwell. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danika Foley. With me, we have School Superintendent Dr. Teresa Bagwell. Dr. Bagwell, now here's the moment I think a lot of people have been kind of waiting for, because what I do here is I like to give both two sides. They would say there's three sides to the story, but for news purposes, there's two. And the big to-do a couple of months ago was the school board tax proposition. And I'm going to brag on myself for a minute, as well as the TV station. What we like to do on The Voice of the Coast is that we want to hear from both sides, the opponents and the proponents. Granted, you are speaking on behalf of the school board, as well as yourself, and we wanted to know, what is this tax about? What is the name of the tax? Where is the money going? And I will say, on both sides, we got two sides. Particularly, the name of the tax was never the teacher sales tax proposal or proposition. It was a school board tax proposition, which means everybody at the school board, including yourself, was to get a raise. Well, since then, we know that the raise has passed. Everyone has gotten a raise. In addition to that, every 2 years, the school board superintendent goes up for an evaluation, and you received an additional raise. Is that right? Am I saying this right?
Well, every year the superintendent is evaluated by the board, and there's a rubric for doing that. Every 2 years, well, it really depends, but when the contract itself comes up for review, during that evaluation year, at that point the board decides, do we want to renew the contract or not? And at the renewal point, you're essentially renegotiating a new contract, the contract renewal. So while every year you are evaluated as a superintendent, the point at which the contract comes up for renewal, then there's discussion about any kind of changes in the contract. And so this year, when my contract was up for renewal, the evaluation and the renewal period came in conjunction with the finalization of the tax proposal results.
Yeah, but it just so happened that's how it fell.
Right, that was just coincidence, yeah.
Because I thought, I was like, they couldn't just hold off, but that's just traditionally.
By state law, the board has to inform a sitting superintendent 120 days in advance as to whether or not they will renew their contract. So it just so happened that is when it was up for discussion.
Okay. So thank you for giving us just a little more information on that, because we know that was kind of a sort of contention, if you will. So I'm glad that we were at least get some information on how that all played out. And just really quickly, as far as the raise, how much of that went to teachers? Like what was the amount, rather?
Okay, so the 0.45%, the money that it's anticipated to raise was purposely set for a $3,000 raise for certificated employees, which is teachers, administrators, and then a $1,500 raise for what they call non-certificated. So an account clerk, a custodian, a bus driver, someone who does not hold a state certificate.
All right, and that's added to their overall, to the
base salary.
Okay, great. In addition to that, there's more money coming down the pipeline. We have a federal stipend. Can you explain how that money is distributed?
Okay, so every school system in the state received 3 sets of federal stimulus funds. Those 3 sets of funds each have a deadline to them. The first was the CARES Act, which we got, at the end of the school year last year. The school district got approximately a little over $3 million, and the school district invested all of that in laptops and internet access points so that we could get school started again. The second stimulus is what they refer to as ESSER 2. ESSER 2 funds go through 2023. And then the very large stimulus that was passed in February is referred to as ESSER 3. That stimulus fund will actually extend into 2024. So as part of the ESSER 2 allocation, school systems had an allowance to provide a one-time stipend to employees who prevented, prepared for, or responded to COVID. That was specific to additional duties that were performed as part of preparing, preventing, or responding to COVID. So today, our employees who were in person and supported the in-person schooling from October 1st through June the 4th today, they received a $2,000 one-time stipend.
Okay.
And that was part of the ESSER 2 funds.
Okay. I want to have one more question with that, but we'll come back after the break and actually talk a little bit more about the federal stipend that's coming back, because there have been a couple of questions that have come up since then. So come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Again, I am your host, Danika Foley. With me, we have Dr. Teresa Bagwell, who's the school superintendent in St. Mary Parish. Now, we just talked about the federal stipend monies that were coming down, and it feels good to be a teacher, I think. At this point, all your hard work is being paid off, and you're getting that cha-ching, which is great. But there has been one question that has come up, and that is, what about teachers who were pregnant? I mean, do they qualify?
Yes, there were a set of criteria that was put together because this is an allowable expenditure under ESSER. So we had to follow those guidelines. So as part of the criteria for determining who would be included within the stipend, we set the parameters to include that time frame between going back to in-person schooling for everybody, where we didn't have hybrid classes anymore, and carrying through the end of the year. So under that stipulation, we actually included a caveat regarding absences. And we excluded things like military leave, if you were in National Guard and you got called up, if you had jury duty, if you had professional leave, you went to a conference. So none of those days counted as part of that absence limitation. Maternity leave, the average maternity leave also did not count. The 10 days of emergency COVID leave that we actually extended into June 30th, that did not count. So if a teacher was quarantined for 10 days because a student in their class got COVID, that 10 days was their COVID emergency leave, and so that did not count into the attendance requirement.
Okay. But overall, I mean, if you have questions, they should contact HR.
Correct. If they have questions about their specific circumstance, the best thing to do is to contact the Human Resources Department at the school board office, because they have all those records and they can walk them through it and just troubleshoot and make sure that, it was all calculated correctly.
Right. Because like you mentioned to me prior to this, is that every maternity leave is different.
Correct. Like I know in some circumstances, a person who was about to have a baby was asked to quarantine for 10 days. Well, that would essentially be a 10-day emergency COVID leave. And then they would have that plus their traditional maternity leave allotment.
Right. Okay. New things coming this upcoming school year, particularly some new faces we'll see at a couple of the area schools. Can you give us the announcement on what's going on?
So Ms. Shannon Hoffbauer, who is the principal of Norman Elementary, she is going to be moving to the school board office to serve as the elementary middle school supervisor. She will be replacing Ms. Nikki Freyu. Ms. Freyu is retiring after 30 years of service to the public school system. And so her replacement is going to be Ms. Veronica LaPointe. Ms. LaPointe is currently the assistant principal at Hattie Watts Elementary. And then we also have Miss Brianna Como, who will be moving into the role of principal at Hattie Watts Elementary, replacing Miss Cheryl Gibbons, who is also retiring after 30 years of service. So we have several changes, and then those always beget new changes.
All right, what were these ladies, like 15 when they started? I would have never thought Ms. Nikki or Ms. Gibbons were 30 years already. Wow, okay. Well, congratulations to them. Now, of course, once you move out of the assistant principal position, that position becomes available. Do you have any names for those positions?
So we interviewed for assistant principals just the other day, and we're currently vetting those candidates, and we'll be ready to make an announcement probably Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, we'll be looking out for that. Also something new, and I think, I know if it wasn't you I talked to about this, I said this pandemic is going to cause new mental concerns, and not just for the children, I would believe even the adults or older children. And here we are. We have something new, and I only have 30 seconds, and I need all the time that I have to talk about this. So we're going to hold this, and we're going to come back and talk more about it, because I really need to get like a good grasp on what's going on for the new school year that's coming up. So come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to us on Facebook. We are KWBJ TV 22. In addition to that, we're also on YouTube. That's right, we're on YouTube. So come to KWBJ Live on YouTube. Come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. I'm here with Dr. Teresa Bagwell, who is the St. Mary Parish Superintendent. Now, we were starting to talk about this new position that has come up in reference, or actually in response to COVID, and it's the social emotional learning coach. Totally new, never heard of something like that. So if you can explain that to me, then I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay, so one part of the ESSER 3 stimulus is that school districts spend 20% of their funds on interventions. And one aspect of those interventions is to provide social emotional support for our students, particularly our younger students who don't have the ability to have some sort of a guidance counselor on staff. So the social emotional learning coach will be assigned to schools that do not have a guidance counselor. Their primary role is to help students with social emotional learning and to train teachers in strategies related to social emotional learning that they can integrate into their daily routine.
Okay, well, you kind of answered my question, because I was saying, you have counselors, so why now a social emotional learning coach when, I know when I was in school and even now we have counselors. However, I will say my counselor was not really, I never really received counseling per se. It was the person who told me, what to prepare for going off to college.
Well, and unfortunately, that is a major part of their duties. But what we're looking forward to trying to do is to bring balance to those guidance counselor schedules as well, so that while they are spending time scheduling and preparing kids for college or for careers, that they also whittle out some time to address children's emotional and social needs, because those impede their academic performance as well. So we are going to try to build some balance into the current role of the guidance counselor in our middle and high schools, and then to add the major support at the elementary level that never really had that opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Well, sounds good. Social emotional learning coach, and it's a new position. And how many positions are there, or have you filled that yet?
Well, we haven't filled them yet. We just interviewed the candidates this week. We are also setting up trainings that all of our candidates will participate in, and some of those trainings will then be re-delivered to the teachers at the various schools. So each of our elementary schools will have a coach on site every day, and then we also will use a couple of our coaches to service our alternative program.
Okay, all right. And let's talk about the summer program, K through 5, and they are filling up, or they've actually filled up, and you have waiting lists.
Yes, our summer adventure program, this is our first year, It's going to integrate learning, fun, and some activities that like arts and crafts and PE activities that students will find fun, hopefully. We have hula hoops and yoga and all kinds of things going on. But yes, we have over 1,200 students signed up. We were thrilled to get that many. And like you said, many of our schools have a waiting list.
Yes, and this is from 8 a.m. to noon, June 7th through the 22nd. That is awesome. This was something that was kind of, you just thought about, and now here we are. It's you didn't, I think you were like, I don't know if we're going to have any teachers, and oh, it's awesome. Thank you again for coming on the show. Thank you guys for joining us. And as always, make sure to join us on Facebook as well as on YouTube. See you guys next time.